Hi friends, WizD here, welcome to a new Raid Shadow Legends video. Today we'll talk about the Wixwell Yannica team now that Plarium confirmed they are not nerfing this comp, at least directly. So if you still want to build this team, you can have those billions of damage from Hydra depending on which difficulty you can build this team for, help your clan, get better rewards and all of that good stuff. So we'll talk about what you need to build this specific team and then what mistakes you should avoid to make sure that you get that crazy damage without getting too frustrated during the process. As always with these guides, I'll put the timestamps in the video description below so you can jump back and forth because probably you'll need to view the video multiple times while you're building your team. First thing to talk about before jumping into the details of building the team is why you should run this team and why you should not run this team so you can judge for yourself before you spend like a few minutes watching the video. Why you should run this team? Because if you're spending hours per week anyways trying to get good damage on Hydra, to get the better rewards and to help your clan and all of that good stuff, why not spend that time with the retries to get the billion damage from the Yannica team? Of course, if you can build it, because that will give you way more damage than any other comp that you can build without like the crazy mythicals and stuff, or double Yumiko Tranda and all of that. So this is your way with a few retries to get way more damage for the highest difficulty that you can tackle depending on your gear. And then I'll show you something quick which is like fits into what we're talking about here. This one. So this used to be my Nightmare Hydra team. Now that I'm using Yannica or Nightmare, I can drop this team to Brutal and achieve even higher damage, getting more and more Hydra Clash points for my clan. So this is why you should run this team if you can and if you have the patience, of course. Talking about patience, we'll jump right into the next topic with it, which is why you should not run this team. This team is pretty in-game, it's very gear intensive, it requires a lot of patience, trials, and even after you properly tune it, speed, resistance and everything, you will face some failures due to the 3% mischief hit stealing your buffs. So if you're not the patient kind, probably this team won't be for you. The other thing is that though with the proper speed tune, you can run it on auto. Of course it will fail a few times, but then one time you're just leaving it on auto, you're not like have to look unless it's for every 10 minutes to make sure the buffs didn't get stolen. Once you reach, and we'll talk about the stuff in detail, so don't worry about it. Once you reach the proper turn count, take it off auto, do the big pop, and then just finish the run there. But still, it will require some time from you. If you're running your current teams completely full auto, you don't even retry or anything, you just leave them running and that's it, then lack of patience probably will prevent you from running this team, and of course the gear level and everything else. So that's why you should and why you should not. Now I like to keep these guides as brief as possible with simple points for you to follow. So if you want an extensive, way longer videos explaining different comps and how to run them and all of that, I'll point you to a couple of links and of course they will be in the description below. So the first link would be Bronco's channel, Bronco Raid Shadow Legends. Bronco's doing he's doing the most of the testing for the whole community for this. If you just go to Bronco's channel and search for Wixwell, you'll find multiple teams. The team I'll show you today, which is the classic basic one, and also like different other teams, including ones like the two most common ones as well, besides the ones that I'll show you today, is the Shake variation of it and the Loki variation. The Loki variation is the most difficult. Don't try it unless you're way end game, you have great gear and you have lots of patience. I would say that the Shake variation is as difficult as the one I'll show you today, so you can run either one based on the champs you have and everything. The other video I'll put in the description below is this video on Hell Hades channel. Basically it was a collab between Hell Hades building this comp, well it's not the comp but they'll talk about it through the video, building the comp with Bronco guiding him. It was a collab between both of them and showing the speed tunes and how to run it on auto and all of that. So if you want the way longer version of the simple guide that I'll show you today, I highly recommend this video between Hell Hades and Bronco, and it will be in the description below as well. The other two links that I'll put in the description below, one of them is increase buff duration champions to check which ones you have. because if you don't have, like in my comp, I'm using Sandlash Survivor, and in some comps they will show you using the Meta or Godseeker and Eerie. So which champs you can use and which champs you can do not use. Anchorite is another option there. We have Valerie and Hellborn. The only like increased buff duration champions that you cannot use for this comp, especially if you want to try it on auto, are the ones that will increase turn meter like Oella or Lanakis. These can mess up the rotation a little bit for the speed tune, but any other one can be used. So I'll put this link also in the description below. And the last link would be for the Stages tool, Hell Hades Stages tool. Why do you need this? Because, and we're basically talking about Head of Mischief here, the ones that will steal your buffs. It's a major component of this like team build. You see here what resistance you need. This is the accuracy, so you'll need 455 resistance or higher. I built my like mischief target around 500 resistance. Tough numbers. Yeah, I'll talk more about the numbers we need and everything. But yeah, so that's depending on difficulty. Unfortunately, if you drop like, because if you cannot build this team for Nightmare and you want to drop to Brutal, for example, you'll note that you can make the speeds lower for your speed tune, but the resistance accuracy won't drop much. Because like, let's say you drop it too hard, so you only dropped, well, yeah, it made a difference. It's at least 50 resistance less. So yeah, depending, I'll put this link there because this will show you just by checking which Hydra difficulty you want to run against, what resistance you can put on your mischief target to achieve like that buff steal only when you want it, which we'll talk about when we jump into the details. So now let's start talk about the details and what you'll need to run this team. The first thing is champ options. Which options do you have to run this team if you don't have these exact champions? Unfortunately, the answer for this is you almost have no options or very little options if you want to run this team. Because if we see here like those core champions that we're seeing in the screen, again, I'm talking about the comp that I'll show you the setup for and the damage for in the video today. In some other comps, Nea is not needed, but in this specific comp that I'm showing you today, the basic one, these 4 champions are irreplaceable. There is no replacement for Emic, Wixwell, Nea, or Yannica. Now if we go to the other 2 champions here, I'm using Duchess in my comp. Duchess can be replaced only by Tatura. I don't think Richter Drath will be a good fit here. We're talking about, because like what I'm saying, this comp is already very difficult and gear intensive to build. If you try to replace it, I think the low-key one, you can like skip one of these, but again, follow the guidance for whatever comp that you will build. But in my case here, Duchess can be only replaced by Tatura. And the last one that we have on the team, which we will have the most flexibility with, is Sandlashed for Survivor. This is our buff extension champion. So you can replace her by anyone from the links that I showed you earlier, depending on which champs you have maxed. For example, I have the Mytha maxed on my account, but I couldn't fit her in because she's going at a different speed for my clan boss comp. So Sandlashed is a great example here. Godseeker and Eerie. If you have a champion that's already built with the same speed, I'll show you the speed tune and we'll talk about it. But yeah, you can replace Sandlashed by any buff extender champions, even Hellborn or Valerie, if you don't have anyone better. Now let's move to the basic mechanics, and don't worry, I will show you the setup from my recorded run, but I just want to talk to you about the theory first. So the basic mechanics, how this team work. The first thing is that we're creating a taunt loop. It's the same for the Shake comp and everything, so Emic will always have the taunt buff so that Hydra cannot steal any of your champions, cannot devour any of your champions. How are we creating this taunt loop? We're creating it using 2 champions, Emic and Nea. So Emic will put taunt, then we'll reset the cooldowns for other champions. So Nea can reset him with 2 turns so that he will always flip between his A3 and his A2 all the time. He will never use his A1 except for maybe once during the speed tune towards the beginning before it goes into sync. But the taunt loop is the most important thing here. This taunt cannot fall from Emic or be stolen by the mischief head at any time. That's why we talk about it when we talk about the resistance and everything. Emic is the mischief target in this comp, so he needs very high resistance. But Emic will be your mischief target. He will have the most buffs from all of them, except for Wixwell sometimes, because the mischief hit can be a little bit random. So you'll need 2 mischief targets if you want to be safe. If you cannot build enough resistance on your secondary target, which is Wixwell in our example here, then you just accept that you'll do more retries. But there is no way around Emic having enough resistance to resist the mischief head all the time, except for the 3% that you cannot avoid sometime. So you'll build this with a mischief target, which is Emic. Second thing is the shield gross, which is the other component of this team comp. You're building a taunt loop, so the Hydra won't devour any champions. Then Wixwell will keep, with the buff extender, will keep increasing the shield, that till it reaches a big enough amount that when you allow it to be stolen by choice, and then Yannica uses her A3, which is the last part that you'll do from that comp, it will do that maximum damage it can do to Hydra heads, which is the 1.1 or 1.2 billion. If you've seen the thumbnail, I wasn't that patient, so I did a little bit less than a billion damage to Hydra heads, but these are the basic mechanics that we'll use today. What stats do we require to run this comp? I'll show you the exact stats I'm running, but like I said, this is very in-game, very gear intensive. Other than speed, which is a given, you need just to build a speed tune, resistance, HP, and defense. How do you need all 3 of these, or where do you need it? Check for difficulty. That's the link that I showed you a little bit earlier. Depending on the difficulty, your speed, defense, and HP might vary, because if you're using it on a lower difficulty, let's say hard versus nightmare, you can build less HP and defense on the champions because they won't be hit that hard. You can build lower speeds as well and lower resistance on your mischief target, which is Emic here. Resistance is the most important thing after the speed tune, because if you don't have enough resistance on Emic, for example, the buffs will be stolen multiple times. If you're just hoping for a good luck with low resistance, it won't happen. Even with enough resistance, this comp is frustrating and it will fail multiple times due to the 3%. So you cannot avoid having enough resistance on your mischief target, or as I was saying a minute ago, on 2 champions, preferably Emic and Wixwell in our example here. Then let's talk about HP for shield. The second component of this team is building enough shield and growing the shield big enough so that when it gets stolen, it's big enough for Yannica's A3 to do maximum damage. You won't have this unless you have at least a couple of champions in shield sets, and shield sets base that shield on those champions HP. In my comp I have 3 champions in shield sets, so without each champion this won't work, because Wixwell on his own without shield sets in the team, it will be very difficult for him to grow the shield on his own. So you need at least a couple of shield sets with good HP on these champions so you can grow them fast enough and you don't have to wait to like round 500 or whatever. With the crazy stats that I will show you on my champions, I had to wait till turn 300 for that shield to be big enough for the 1 billion pop. So you need to build HP for the shield champions and then like 2k defense more or less on everyone else, so the Hydra won't hit hard enough, especially if the Head of Wrath, the orange hard-hitting hit is in the rotation, so it won't break the shield basically, and this shield will be strong enough and will keep growing. HP on the shield champions and defense on everyone else. We already talked about the defense, so let's move on. Speed tune, it just cannot be autoed. The reason of the speed tune, of course you'll need all the champions. Like I'm running my comp on manual because I don't trust, like I want to decrease the amount of reruns that I'm going to do. But if you have the speed tune right, like what you'll see in Hell Hades video that I linked, you can leave it to run on auto, check on it every 10 minutes. For the shield to build long enough, it will take between 30 and 40 minutes. You might have to do some retries, but if it's auto and you check in on it a couple of times, it won't be an issue if you even free the group a few times. So speed tune is important. It will be even better if you can auto it. Next thing is when to know, like when to end it, how to know when to end it, how to know when the shield is big enough. Unfortunately, this answer will be like variable according to your account. how big the initial shields are, how lucky you will get with Wixwell Merciless or Reflex gear, so that he will keep growing the shield faster. But for your own account and gear, you will get a sense after you tune it for the first time. Wait as long as you can. This is my first advice for you because it differs per account. But like for example, after I tuned it, I ran it for the first time on my account, I figured out that with my gear setup, and of course it varies depending on the reflex luck, I'll have to wait at least till like around turn 300. Hell Hades in his video had to wait to like 260. So you will wait. It's not too long because like I said, the run will take from 30 to 40 minutes. Talking about hydra trials, that's not too long. But yeah, depending on the strength level of your gear, if your gear level is not that high, you might have to earn even to turn 500 or whatever. I don't recommend running it if you don't have at least my level of gear that I will show you, because like I said, with my level of gear, I had to wait till after turn 300 of the boss turn. The longer you wait, the higher the probability of the mischief head stealing your buffs without you wanting it, without you planning it. So yes, technically you can run it till you get to the boss's turn 1000 if you want, but then you have a very high probability of the buffs getting stolen at the wrong time, and either you not doing enough damage or you just have to retry because Emek won't grow the shield fast enough because he's getting hit all the time. He's in the leader spot. Common mistakes before we jump into me showing you the actual run and then the speed tune and everything. Something that I didn't know and I needed to ask my clan about and check a few videos is that if you have the head of decay, is it the provoke head that puts shields on other heads? You don't want this shield to be up before you do the big hit, because if this shield is the one that Yannica targets instead of your big shield, then she will do way less damage. She just do a couple of millions in damage. So the best way of making sure that this won't happen is that if you see this shield from the provoke head, just wait till it expires. You don't want this shield to be on any head before you let your shield being stolen and then spread onto the other heads. The other silly mistake is that if Yannica doesn't have her perfect veil, her A3 won't work. So if she loses, usually you put the intercept buff, I'll show you in a minute, don't worry, on Yannica to get stolen because probably she will have the least resistance. If the perfect veil gets stolen, make sure to reapply it with her A2 or with Duchess or Tatura's skill before you do the big hit, because she needs the perfect veil to perform the two hits. So these are the two common mistakes that you can get into that can be frustrating. You'll get all the way to the turn that you want and then you lose your damage because of this. So pay attention to these. Now let's go check the recording, which will show you the setup, and then towards the end, how would you do the big hit. Okay, let's go through the run here. So I'll walk you through the setup. Setup got a little bit of variation depending on the speeds. But the important things that I'll show you here, for example, we start with Emek A3. We want Emek to have the taunt buff for all the run. It should never fall. And then the second thing is that he should also have the biggest number of buffs, the highest number of buffs. So the head of mischief here will keep targeting him, and he has enough resistance to resist it, and it won't target any other champions here. So you see here I put the taunt on Emek, and then of course Duchess will apply her A2 to put the perfect veil on everyone, increasing the number of buffs. So that will help with Wixwell extension, which was based on shield enlargement, because it will be based on the number of buffs. And then immediately, for example, here my Sandlash goes second, so she can extend the buffs. You note here, so depending on the number of buffs, what you want to do here, you have a little bit of a choice during that first turn from Wixwell. You can either place the intercept on Emek, so that the blue head, the fear head, if it hits him, it won't apply the fear, also to increase the number of buffs for him. This is relatively safe because he has the largest number of buffs and the perfect veil. You can choose to start with Wixwell's A2 instead, just start extending the buffs and increasing the shield, but then eventually you'll want to make sure that Emic has that intercept all the time. So like I said, there is a little bit of variation here. What doesn't have variation when it comes to, like you see here now, it's Nea's turn. You want that taunt loop. So after Emic applies his A3 or A2, it will get in sync. I'll show you when we go a little bit into the run. You need to reset him with Nea so that he will never go into his A1. He will just like alternate between A3 and A2. Of course, you can skip this turn from Nea because it's still early. We're not worried about taunt yet. We have a few turns before like our devour target gets eaten. And then if you want the auto run, you can auto it here. You'll see, like, for example, here Emic will use his A2. Then I can, let me just skip a little bit ahead. I'll put intercept on Emic here. So now if you notice, that's how it should remain for the majority of the run. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 buffs, which is the maximum number on Emic. And then the second one in the number of buffs will be Wixwell. That's if the mischief target, if intercepts falls off, and then the mischief target like wants to target someone else, it's going to be Wixwell. That's why I'm saying he's your secondary mischief target, and you need to build resistance on him as well. After this, we're getting into the loop. So let me just go a little bit further. So you notice here, for example, when it's one turn from taunt, you need to have like MX A3 ready to reapply the taunt. And then you notice here, he will do his A2 the second time to reset Nea, and then she will reset him to put the taunt back on. That's the cycle. You want Wixwell to use his A2 whenever it's ready. I'll show you the setup. And then to use his A3 afterwards on Emic if you're running this on manual like me. Technically, if you put intercept on everyone, it's going to be okay, but I don't like the RNG of this. So I just manual it, and whenever the intercept buff falls from Emic, I reapply it with Wixwell's A3, otherwise I'm prioritizing his A2. That's all of it. You keep it running when it gets in sync like this. You see here he had like only one layer of intercept, so I reapplied it. Let's now go all the way to the end. So this was a successful run, but I didn't wait long enough. You see here it's turn 216. I had to repeat it and wait to 300 to get the numbers that I will show you in a sec. But it was successful in the sense of, if you see here, like this is turn 200 from Hydra, it's 30 minutes in. You see how big the shield grown on everyone? Actually, that was when it was stolen. Okay, let me go back a little bit. Okay, now we are in the right place. What you'll notice here is that Emic still has the largest number of buff. At this time, I decided, okay, let me try to do the big hit and see how much damage it does. You'll notice the huge shield on everyone. When it comes to Wixwell's turn to apply the A3, I won't put it on Emic, I will put it in Yannica. So she's a juicy target for the mischief hit, and our shield, our huge shield, will get stolen when we want it to. So you see here, I applied the A3 on Yannica, and then I'm just waiting for the mischief hit to get, like you see here, one of the things I was telling you about. Now this head got the small shield. Definitely, if the mischief hit got the small shield, you cannot do the big hit. You just have to like wait, repeat, or free the group or whatever. But with it on another head, you can do it, just don't target this head when you do the big hit. Now the mischief hit will take a turn. It targeted Yannica because of the intercept buff. It got that big shield on it now. And then it will spread it to everyone else. As you notice here, it didn't replace this, so Yannica should not be targeting this head. It should be targeting one of the other heads to do the big hit here. So we're just waiting to get to Yannica's turn to do the A3. She still have the perfect veil if you see it, which is very important. Then she will do the big hit. You notice here she only did like lower than 200 million because I needed to wait more. which is exactly what I did on the next run. I just waited for longer. I didn't do anything differently. Now let me show you the final damage. So this is the final damage. Like I said, I waited till turn 300 to get that number. I should have waited a little bit longer because I'm a little bit shy from the maximum damage, maybe 50 more turns. Don't look at the time here because I was doing so many retries and multitasking while I'm doing it. So I just left it running for a while on manual. So there is a bit of wasted time here. If you're focused on this, I think you can get to turn 300 in like 30 to 40 minutes. You can save yourself at least 10 minutes from this. But this is the number when it worked properly. Now let's check the builds. After we check the AI setup, I will show you the builds because the sets makes a difference because of the shield set specifically. But yeah, let me show you my save team here. It should be this one. And you can try it on auto if you want. Emic will always prioritize his A3s and his A2. My speeds are a little bit on the high side. Check the speeds from the other videos from Bronco and Hell Hades. Probably you can safely drop like 20 speeds from everyone. You have to test it. There is a margin. The important thing is that for all of them to go like in sync, basically the setup that I've shown you, that setup shouldn't fall at any time. Especially like that taunt loop between Emic and Nea. For the resets, Wixwell will go out of turn if his A2 is ready because of reflex, but the important thing is that the number of buffs should remain more or less the same on everyone, so that we maintain Emic as the target, and then Nea resetting Emic and the other way around. That's Wixwell, and as you see here, we started, if you're starting it on auto, start with the A3 so it will put intercept on Emic and then prioritize the A2 all the time, and that's the speed and everything. If you notice here, like I have more than 500 speed on both of these champions. You need anything more than 455 if you're talking Nightmare, or like use the link to see if it can be a little bit lower on the lower difficulties, but you need as much resistance as you want on these two. They are going to be targeted. Just decrease your frustration from the buffs getting stolen by putting as much resistance as you can. Yannica doesn't need anything. We're only using her A1 with the speed and sync here, and you do her A3 on manual. She doesn't need crit rate, she doesn't need accuracy, she doesn't need anything. Just for her to be speed tuned in a shield set because she doesn't need any other stats, and then for her to do the big pop when the time comes. Nea also doesn't need much, just the speed. We're just using her for the reset. Sandlash Survivor, the same thing. You just need her to be speed tuned to keep extending those buffs. And the last one here is Duchess. Duchess just need to be probably second fastest in the team to apply the perfect veil before we start extending the buffs. But other than this, just put as much HP in a shield set on her. Same for the Tura if you're using the Tura. If you're using the Tura, you might want to give him accuracy to put decrease accuracy on the Head of Mischief, to decrease the possibility of it stealing the buffs from you without you wanting it, before, like prematurely basically. Now let's check the actual gear on those champions. This is our Emic. This is just to give him more HP. The sets are not relevant for Emic here. Now let's go find Wixwell. This is my Wixwell. Reflex or Merciless is very important for Wixwell because we want him to extend the shield as fast as possible and as big as possible. This will decrease the number of turns you have to wait, and still it will be RNG based, so that you don't have to wait forever to do that big hit with the chance of Mischief Hit stealing it. You cannot run this comp without Reflex or Merciless on Wixwell. Theoretically you can, but it will be very boring. It will take many retries to just save yourself some trouble there. Third champion we have is Duchess. All you need for Duchess is for her to be one of the champions in a shield set because she had high base HP, and then to put, other than the speed, as much HP as you can on her. So that's Duchess basically. Yannica in a shield set to make that shield bigger. She doesn't need anything except the speed. Sandlash doesn't need anything except the speed. If you can put her in a shield set as well, the more the merrier. That will make the run shorter. And the last one we have is Nea. Again, just the speed with the shield set. If you do want me to test the shake variation and explain it to you in the same way, because I haven't built already, let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know, was that helpful? How you want to see it different? Do you want longer, shorter guides? What did you expect in this guide that you didn't find? Because we can do it better the next time. I hope this one was helpful. Thank you for tuning in today. I'll see you next time. Bye.